What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tesla Fix. Today we have a special episode. I know I tell that to you guys every time, almost every episode, but it's always special in my opinion. But this time it's totally different because today we're going to talk about FSD and a certain company in Europe that has a pretty interesting plan. And to see what's going on here, I'm going to introduce the guys that are with me today after the intro.
Welcome to Tesla Fix. Make sure to subscribe and like this episode.
So, hello everybody. A huge chunk of the team of MisterGreen is here with us today to talk about everything FSD and even more than that. Also the plan of MisterGreen here that they are doing in Europe. And I would love to introduce everybody here. And yeah, maybe you guys can tell the audience who you are, and then we can just start the episode here.
Well, thank you, Jan, at first for having us. It's a big honor. To explain what we are doing with MisterGreen. I'm one of the co-founders. My name is Florian Minderop. We started MisterGreen 15 years ago. And next to me is my dear friend and colleague, Kees Roelandschap. He is our expert in FSD. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, I've been working here at the company for 4 years already. Shifted responsibilities, and FSD got my attention and now has my full focus. So I try to stay up to date with UNECE legislation in particular, but also very curious for the inner workings on the technology. And it exceeds my knowledge most of the time, but I like to think of myself to be constantly in the loop and updated on the latest updates.
Awesome. And Friedrich, yeah, you're also here gladly.
Unfortunately, I'm not with the others. I'm German. I live in Germany, so I'm responsible for the German operations and the business in Germany at MisterGreen. Joined 2 years ago, almost at the same day at the Giga opening in Berlin, where I met the others, and then
awesome.
fell in love with the idea that they had, and they pitched it to me, and then it was over. And now I'm here, basically. So happy to have this interview.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Maybe you can tell the audience what you are doing. What's your mission and everything? Because I think then it makes sense for them why I have you on the show. It's so interesting what you do. And especially there's one question from my audience. They always ask the FSD regulation in Europe. Of course, we can keep this question for maybe the end of the episode to see how the regulation is there. Because, of course, everybody wants to drive with FSD here as well soon, and with Mercedes on the run doing their drive pilot everywhere. But yeah, maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about MisterGreen, what you do, and your mission and everything, and then we can go on. Yeah,
sure. I'm glad to tell something about MisterGreen. We started 15 years ago. We started with the mission, and our mission was to end fossil fuel. I'm an economist by study. And I started working at a bank, and afterwards I started working at an oil company. And I did that because I was born in Venezuela, and my dad worked in the oil industry, and he always brought me to this oil business. And I love the oil business. I love the smell of it, and I thought I want to do something in it. But then I started working in it, and I started learning every aspect of the oil industry, and it really hit me. What kind of effects the oil industry has on the geopolitical spheres, but also economic spheres, and also the lack of innovation in that business, especially in the ICE car business, where 1 liter of diesel or benzene only gets you 10% of the real energy. The other 90% is evaporated in the air out of nothing. So it's really not efficient at all. When I started there in the oil industry, I wanted to fight it. I wanted to kill it. It's actually a pretty naive idea, but that's where it all started, where the fire within me started. So we're mission driven. We want to end fossil fuel. I met my co-founder afterwards. He had the same drive, the same positivity of actually this is going to happen in our lifetime. And now 15 years later, we are actually thinking that we're winning and that the oil industry is losing. So it's amazing what can happen in 15 years. I mean, we've been through a lot of struggles within MisterGreen, but that's what we're doing. And now I'm joined by 60 other very inspired colleagues trying to battle this big giant. And of course, 10 years ago, we got in contact with Tesla and learned that Tesla had the same mission and that we were actually completely aligned. So at this moment, we have 5,000 Teslas in our fleet. We're still expanding. 3 years ago, we expanded to Germany, to Belgium, and to Denmark. And we want to conquer Europe. And well, that's still an uphill battle, but there are always problems coming along. But we're doing that mainly because we want to build a fleet of robotaxis. So we're a leasing company right now, but we are a typical leasing company. So that means that we buy the cars, we rent them out, but a normal leasing company would sell them. We keep the cars. And if we keep the cars, we put them in the lease again, and we call that redrive. So we want our cars to redrive again. The reason that we're doing that is we want to buy FSD on top of the cars. When the software is ready, the fleet will awaken to a robotaxi. So that's in a nutshell our story. Maybe you have something to add, Kees or Friedrich, I don't know.
I try to help wherever I can by staying updated about legislation mainly, and also trying to be creative. What can we exactly do once that fleet gets awakened? Because that's the next step. And there's loads of possibilities to choose from. And I think that array of possibilities is also seen by companies like Hertz, for instance, other fleet managing companies. We're not the only one, but I think we're quite unique. Netherlands has always been a main driver of our growth. Right now, we see a shift in mainly France and Germany, and also the UK, where Tesla is getting huge sales numbers in, and also still the Nordics. So that's the reason why we're there, and we put Friedrich in charge to attack or make a battle plan for the German market, to conquer the German market.
Yeah, when I've first heard or seen what you do, I totally resonated, because we've seen the news about Hertz, for example, also, and Hertz invested in Tesla a lot with buying their cars. A lot of cars were ordered by hand. That's pretty crazy from the online store. That's a little side story, but
that's what we do still as well, no? It's all by hand.
Your fingers are already bleeding probably by ordering so many cars. But yeah, when I saw that, I was immediately like, yeah, that's the way to do it. It's such an advantage to have. Of course, you need many cars to have a robotaxi fleet, of course, and that's why leasing is such a great idea to start this, and then it shifted, and that's such a cool thing on top. You can right away do the update, and then the cars should be capable of doing that, and this was something that I really resonate with. So you have the leasing also in Germany expanding, and what is the plan for whole Europe, or what's the bigger goal to here?
Well, Friedrich, maybe you can explain a little bit about Germany and our plans there, and about redrive, and then I can explain a little bit about Europe.
Yeah, Florian is the mastermind behind this, right? So in the end, he needs to take over. In our daily work, this whole FSD topic isn't as important as you might think, because what we try to get here first is as many Teslas on the road as we can, and then turn them into a robo fleet. So the first goal, right, is focusing on growing the company, because frankly speaking, selling a car with FSD currently, to a customer in Europe, or especially in Germany, is not that attractive as it is in the US, right? We have a complete different software stack here. Still can barely see, traffic signs on the screen, and it's back. I don't know. It's probably on a software stack from 2 years ago or something, or 3, and it's not even worked on as we speaking. The full focus on Tesla is on FSD Beta in the US, and then they might they ship something over. And also at Tesla, by the way, right? If you walk into a Tesla shop in Germany, I really don't know if anyone is aware of this. Even the Tesla salespeople or people who work at Tesla, it's not even a big topic. Yeah, you can talk. They have no idea about it. They also have no idea about FSD Beta in the US. Most of them.
Interesting.
It's a complete mismatch, right? So on our daily work, it's not our first priority. It's first getting the cars on the road, having the fleet healthy and growing, and then after that, try to get as much FSD packages on board as we can. And of course, we hope that the software also gets better, that Tesla on a weekly or monthly basis updates the car. But as of now, that's not really happening. I guess it will literally be like a overnight thing where they really come up with a huge update, but then slowly turning, the awaken the robo fleet. And then, as we all know, the asset, as we see that the asset now appreciates in a way that we've never seen probably before. There are just a handful of people that really anticipate this, and we are one of them. And that's what we do. But like I said, for now, in our day-to-day work, it's basically more like a traditional lease company from a goal-setting point.
Yeah, this makes sense. I mean, of course, when FSD isn't available, you cannot really calculate it in. And like you've said, that I didn't actually know that FSD was still a little bit backwards in that sense, that Europe doesn't get the same love than the US market, of course.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
Not at all. Yeah, but this makes sense. So first step is to grow the company, grow the leasing business even further. That we have more Teslas on the road, because that's part of the mission to have renewable or push renewable energies in the sense with the automotive sector.
To add to what Friedrich just said, there's a difference between having a vision and actually executing on that vision. And the execution part is the most difficult part, just like Elon always says. But we are next to expanding just on the leasing new lease cars, so the Model 3, the Model Y. We are also having a beautiful product now. It's called Redrive. So we actually put in Model S's and Model X's, which are ending from the first lease term. We put them in a Redrive contract again. So we are able to offer cheap and low monthly duration lease contracts. So it's almost like a subscription basis at under €600 a month. So it's a very attractive option. We actually also do believe that this Redrive is very interesting for other countries. So we are still searching for partners outside of Germany and Belgium and Denmark, where we all do it by ourselves, but we're looking actually for people to join our mission and to join our vision and say, hey, hello, maybe I can help you. And together with FSD coming somewhere next year, we still believe it's going to be approved somewhere in the second quarter of 2024. It will bring a huge change in our value proposition, because then we're able to actually offer them the true Tesla experience. And the true Tesla experience is not known at all at this moment, but that's what their value proposition is going to be, and that's also where we're betting on.
This makes absolutely sense. I mean, the fact that you could just update the car afterwards gives the car or the cars you own then absolute more value, of course. And I'm astonished by the idea. I really still am very excited.
It's not only in the value of the vehicle that might appreciate. It's also in human productivity output and safety. Safety is, of course, that's the main driver for it, but it's for us, like, it's the productivity output. So you could spend that, especially in countries like Germany, where the commute is usually 1 hour or maybe longer. It's essentially useless. You can't do anything. Maybe you can do some phone calls, but there's no real productivity output, and that's worth something as well.
That's
so
true.
When thinking about FSD, it's not only in terms of comfort, safety, or productivity output. You could also generate revenue from it. So let's say you lease a company still with us, and you could deploy that car as a taxi. You could earn money, and we can earn money at the same time. And that's only one of the business models that we could roll out. We could also align with people who are now Uber drivers, and they're limited to one physical driver per car, but that Uber driver could become its own Uber. And we could start by cleaning the vehicles or making sure they're charged, like stuff like that. So in essence, our complete business model could be turned around, or just added as a component to our core leasing business, as we still do now, because that's the main goal, as many cars as possible.
Yeah, and also right now, I think from the almost 5,000 contracts we have, about 1/3 of them are FSD contracts, and the clients are already very happy with the FSD which we're offering, which Tesla's offering right now. Actually, I just traded in my Model Y for an old Model S from our own Redrive contract, and I don't have FSD on this new Model S.
Mhm.
And I'm just driving it for one day, but I'm so used to having FSD that I'm like an addict looking for my FSD, and I can't find my FSD. Even though the software is not as good as in the US already, it's already giving you an added value. It's already a value proposition. And nice thing that we do is that we offer it at a very small price. So we can already offer it like for 45 euros a month. And people are actually very happy with that offer. And that's why we have these high take rates. It's still very unknown in Europe. It's almost amazing that nobody's talking about it. There's no mention about it in the mass media. That's kind of strange for such a disruptive product.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that totally. How do you think the lawmakers, because in Europe it's a little bit different than the US, where the laws are a little bit more open to new innovations in that sense. They also have to comply, of course, with rules, but here you really have to approve everything beforehand. A lot of testing phases, a lot of things have to happen before that the lawmaker approves it before you can roll this out. So how do you see the developments in FSD in Europe? For me, I'm so pessimistic in that topic because I know German legislation very well. And yeah.
I understand where you're coming from. And that's, Elon said it at the opening of Giga Berlin. It's very striking to me. In the US, everything is legal by default until precedents happen or takes place, and then litigation starts, and then legislation gets made. Over here, especially the European Union, everything is illegal by default until everything is put into guidelines with rules and regulations. But for technology like this, it stifles or it hinders the pace of development. And we've actually seen this taking place where we first saw adaptive cruise control and then some lane assist systems. And for each specific type of driver assistant system, a UN regulation gets made. So we have a UN regulation for automated lane keeping systems. We then have a UN regulation for an automatically commanded steering function, which guides the lane changes, for instance. But once this legislation gets filled with rules and exceptions and meters per second that it allows for oncoming traffic, for instance, that it starts conflicting with another set of rules and regulations. And since 2020 or 2021, the automatic on-ramp and off-ramp, like merging on and off an highway, that functionality even got pulled from the software, where we were able to use it correctly. So at some points it even got worse, but on some on some functionalities, the performance did improve. So lane changes on its own, they did improve. And phantom braking, for instance, that also happens way less than it did before. But in terms of functionalities, it gets taken down. And therefore we have this new dynamically controlled assistant systems, quite a big word. That's more like what they're doing in the States. So they have general outlines and terms where the software needs to comply, but the responsibility still stays with the driver. So not what we see with Mercedes-Benz, for instance, which fully complies with one specific UN regulation, but on really specific conditions and weather types. So it doesn't really work, and it only benefits in a traffic jam. So kudos for the marketing team that they comply, but in essence, it doesn't really work. But what this DCAS will allow for.
Kees, may I interrupt you in a second? What it works for, and that's what I see in the public here in Germany. This mainly works for PR stunts and for PR reasons. Because if you ask your neighbor who's leading in autonomous driving, they say, Mercedes just announced
level 3, yes.
and then you want to dig, and then you start digging into their knowledge, and it's like they just read the headlines. So so still, so that's why this is actually a big thing for them. But yeah, it eventually will end up nowhere than in a trash bin, I guess. But that's my opinion here. Okay, Kees, go on.
Kees made an excellent question, remark. He said, "Mary, you led, and it mattered."
Yeah, and it matters, of course.
My Mercedes led, and it mattered. No, but the DCAS will allow for essentially autonomous systems. It is level 2, but it can do way more in terms of capabilities. But for the law, the driver is still responsible, and that's what Beta has proven itself to be very useful, where the driver can intervene and the system can learn from those interventions, just as any student driver would need to learn and would need to make mistakes. But because without mistakes, you can't learn and you can't clean any data sets. Hopefully the legislators and the leaders of the Economic Commission, they're also seeing this. And there's finally some speed in the process. Sadly, as you know how it goes with regulators, it takes time, nitpicking on wording and stuff like that. So there's still some work to do. I'm not as optimistic as Florian is in Q2 for next year, because if it gets pulled to next year, which I give it 80%, 90% possibility, we'll see it enter into force from January 2025, and probably not any sooner than that. But if it does, the better for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me also, with the things with the Drive Pilot was, for me personally, I found it very ridiculous, actually, because I know, because I worked in the medical field, we have this gruesome thing called the telematic infrastructure in Germany, which is a digitalization of the medicine market. And I really see how the big software companies lobbied with the lawmaker to make something up, and they whispered in their ear what they should do and what they should try. And you really see that because the lawmaker was involved and the development took so long actually to do something. Now it's so stuck that it's hard to get this thing unstuck, really. And I kind of see that at Mercedes as well a little bit. That's just an assumption of me that Mercedes did everything in their playbook to try to get the regulation like it is, and now you see what kind of mess we have with the Drive Pilot Level 3 system, where the air conditioning runs on auto when you just start it, for example, that the windows don't get fogged and anything, and then if you're near a construction site, it just disengages. If you're in a tunnel, it disengages. If you don't have internet connection, it disengages. So it disengages on so many levels, and it's so hard-coded still that I think it's not feasible when they reach a point where they should go to level 5. It's much more difficult to go from. Yeah, they cannot scale up.
They start all over. This is not.
Yeah, totally. And maybe, I don't know who wants to answer this question. How do you see now FSD 12 in the picture of the context? Yeah. Maybe even compare it with the Drive Pilot in that sense that you say, okay, we have a hard-coded system here, which is totally like, okay, you can take your hands off the wheel, and Mercedes is at fault if something happens then, but still, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're completely right in pointing out the main difference. It's a hard-coded system with all manually entered rules to make a system comply with the legislation, and that's also the mindset of this legislative framework, because you cannot foresee what will happen in the future. So why make legislation for something that's still in development and still in the early phases? A system like Drive Pilot will have major difficulties in scaling up or making that step from level 3 to 5. That's the biggest hurdle, because we're already so long in the level 1, 2 stages. We understand that game. It's not that difficult to make an automated lane keeping system. And it's also not that difficult to make a lane change. But what is difficult is perception and planning and acting with your environment and all these different road users. And that's where FSD comes into play. Their thinking has always been from first principles. How are we going to tackle this issue on the bigger scale? What's the end goal? How do we get there? They don't care about level 1 or 2 or 3, and great for them. But how are we going to make this giant leap by making shitty versions sometimes, where you think FSD, why the hell are you doing this? Why are you braking? But it needs those mistakes, and what it needs for the most part is vehicle data, fleet data. And that's where the main benefit and driver of the growth and development of the system is. It's in a massive data they're generating every day. And even cars without FSD are sending that data back. So what other companies are doing, they have smaller fleets, less data coming in, and also not the technical know-how to get those data sets prepared for training, and then having the data centers and the compute power to handle all that data coming in. So for now, we'll see players like BMW and Mercedes on the forefront, and still they make technologically perfect products, and it works really good. But they're going to get
leapfrogged.
Leapfrogged by Tesla. Tesla is, I can't say it, the diesel. They're taking a little bit of time, but then they're coming.
Yeah, and it's also it's not the question anymore if we are able to get to level 5. That's not the question anymore in the market. I mean, it's already shown by Cruise and Waymo that's possible. The question is who's going to scale the robotaxi business as fast as possible. With Cruise and Waymo and the other players, they don't have the scalable business solution yet in place. Number one is data, of course. You need all the data, and you need cars on the road. Then you need a system which is able to reproduce in every part of the world. So not just by getting into a part of the world and just start all over again. So it needs to be generic and not geo-fenced. And second, you need compute power to really handle this data. And that's something that we learned the last few months as well. Who are the winners in this game? I mean, it's not the traditional auto makers. It's the people who are actually buying the compute power. And well, Tesla's not only buying compute power, they're actually building their own dojo. So, I mean, we can talk about hours about this, but it's amazing. If you've read the book from Elon, it also says they've been building the car as if it's already a robotaxi, and it's always been all in for them to make this a self-driving car. So it's not only about making an electric car, but it's about making an autonomous car. So it's already baked into the production, into the machine that builds the machine. It's baked in everything already. Yeah, well, I'm talking too much, I think.
No, it's totally fine. I mean, you really have a lot of points here. It's really crazy how this development is unfolding now with the different approaches. And I remember when the early phase was with the Drive Pilot in Germany. I've heard from a friend who worked at Mercedes actually. I'm like, yeah, Tesla is a totally different approach. How do you do it? How do you train your Drive Pilot prototype thing to read signs and everything? And they said, yeah, we sent the video footage to India, and then there is a fleet of people who go through the files and tag a little bit what it is. I mean, this is similar like Tesla did it in the beginning, but very in the beginning. And still, of course, they still have to flag what is what. But now the system is already so far developed that the system itself could identify things. And Mercedes still had to really much do it by hand. And this is the fruit of the system that they have now. I mean, it works so limited. So if they knew that, oh, this scenario is a little bit bad for Drive Pilot, let's just disengage there. And then they have, that's the problem with the system, that it doesn't go through every scenario you have. Even if the road is maybe, for example, I don't know, something fell over or dirt fell off a truck and the road isn't visible anymore. FSD could handle this kind of situation, and the Drive Pilot couldn't. And if you know Germany, the internet connection here is sometimes very horrible because we are behind Bulgaria with the internet connections. So, I just wanted to mention that.
It's time for Starlink in Germany.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So another question was maybe to Friedrich again for 1 second. How do you view this development in Germany? Do you think, my fear, for example, is that Germany will have a long arm in the EU Parliament and try to push their rules to the European Parliament? And how do you view this? Maybe you can say something about this. I don't know, but
yeah. So personally, I don't want to be involved too much in politics.
yeah,
but of course, I can give my 2 cents here. So I see it, because you also ask it timeline FSD 12. We are talking about general artificial intelligence, right? Yes. On FSD 12, and this is way bigger than just driving cars without drivers, so autonomous driving. This is if Tesla is bringing out the bots and Optimus and all of that. If they really, come up with this within the next, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years. If they execute on this plan and it comes true, it will change the world fundamentally, right? So the economy of, let's say, the US, then, for example, it will. I don't know. I don't even know. It will double within the next 2 years. Then, in a time frame of 2 years, we don't know. But all I know is when there's money, things change faster, way faster than before. And one of the reasons, in my opinion, is that we have this whole shebang about autonomous driving in Europe and whatever, because nobody has any good business case presented to a politician, and they never really looked into this and thought about the idea really of, if we really going to do this, what happens to the economy of our country, Germany, or it doesn't matter what country it is in the end. But all I know is that as soon as someone realizing is, it will happen very fast, because if there's money involved, things go just way faster. And then out of nowhere, it doesn't matter anymore if this regulation is in this country or whatever, because they see, okay, we cannot keep up with the US or with this country if we do not allow autonomous vehicles, if we do not allow AI in our country, and so on and so on. And then it will go way faster than before. And I think this is something that nobody really has on their radar when it comes to talking about timelines, because now it has it's not we're not talking about too much money, I guess. So it's not high on the priority list. But Tesla knows, and they're prioritizing it, and US things are different, we know, and therefore this is my opinion on it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
I think I need to disagree kind of with your statement, Jan. I don't think it's necessarily lobbying and making legislation a lot slower, because having the right sets of rules and regulations in place will also give them an opportunity to take advantage of this new technology and this new business, because it's not too late. They're going to be they are late, but there are a lot of smart people at brands like Mercedes-Benz, but also at BMW.
Yes, of course.
And they also have a lot of financial backing, a lot of debts also, and diminishing margins. But if they play it well within a regulatory framework that suits them and suits all players in the field, everybody can benefit. Because once this technology comes out, there's going to be so many different ideas you can let loose on this technology. It's going to be a real disruptor. So I don't think they really advantage or benefit from making it slow.
Okay. Yeah, it was just a little bit overcritical in that sense. But you're right. I think you have a big point here as well. That's true. I mean, I also am very for that they improve. I mean, Mercedes announced that they really want to go to EVs, and that's a good sign. And BMW is kind of in a strange situation, because they have their hardcore fans that are so much in the diesel and in the performance division of BMW as well. So the brand itself is difficult to really go to EVs. But they already did great EVs before. It's interesting, they did the sportier one. I'm blanking out on the name, but
i4?
The i4, yes. Also, the i3 was a great car, because it was carbon fiber. They really took the time to really redesign the car for the electric drivetrain, and this was a total success. But now with that they don't have a frunk to keep their option open, should we put a internal combustion engine inside or not? What do we do? So I don't really like their that they don't really push it even further than this, and maybe show a performance car, a faster performance car for their audience, that they see, look, here's an electric car that's way faster, also has the BMW drive feeling, and we will see how this will unfold. And but you're right. I also hope that the German brands can keep up and actually keep up, because the last thing we need is a monopoly in this as well, and
it's never beneficial.
Never beneficial for the market and for the consumer as well, because then prices can just go up and up and up.
Well, that's probably also why Tesla is going to license the whole FSD technology.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the reasons that they're going to do that.
Yeah, then they have to get regulated, because when they have the single monopoly, then it's dangerous, and then they also know that then the lawmakers will step in someday. They knock on the door and say, okay, we have to split you up into different divisions. That's true. One other thing, Florian, you went to the US, right? I think it was half a year ago or a few months ago somewhere. I've read something that you've tested FSD there.
Well, Kees went to
Kees,
my co-founder. So
yeah, with the co-founder. Sorry, yeah, I've mixed that up. But
yeah, exactly.
How was it?
Almost a year ago, Matt Smith, he offered us to drive his car for a week. We did a lot of driving in the Detroit area, and also were Dirty Tesla. We've driven in his area mainly for the first couple of days, and we were really blown away by some of the situation it handles perfectly. For instance, you drive into a suburban area, and there's this postal van, like the DHL van.
Yes.
And there's a lot of leaves in the middle of the road, no lane markings, and also oncoming traffic. And the car decisively maneuvered in between and violated some rules where it should have waited, but it displayed really human-like behavior, and at times it was painstakingly slow. And I'm really focused on my surroundings all the time, and I don't want to annoy other drivers. So
yes.
I hover with my foot over the throttle, because if it goes too slow, I just intervene and go on. But Mark is really good at this, and he doesn't mind what happens around him. And he let the system drive on its own and make mistakes. It sometimes made mistakes where you think this is not safe, but in 80% of the times, it was amazing. And that was already a year ago. And they've overhauled the system completely. There's still some big steps to take, but for me was the best part. The city driving, that's really difficult. In a city like Chicago, it will drive on bus lanes, it will run red lights. Now it does it less and less. But if you drive on the highways, there could go 3 hours without any intervention. That's a big step, because just like in your country, the same applies to the US. You need to drive long distances. You'll get tired, you'll make mistakes, and that's where it plays a big role in safety. But also, this is a really easy operational design domain where a system like this almost for 99% works. And that's where where we're going to see the first productivity output increases. Those long commutes, or maybe especially for the Tesla Semi, it could do the big hauls of transportations, and then only the last mile delivery hurdle needs to be taken. But also for the city driving, it handles it perfectly. Not as good as a human would, but if it was like a human, sometimes humans make terrible mistakes as well.
Yeah, and I think also there plays a big role that when you have the Dojo computer finally also, then you have more and more the simulation of the scenarios, and then you can really train the system, because we've seen the FSD 12, how could you say, a test drive from Elon Musk or something that was pretty on X, pretty bad resolution, and I was hoping that next time he can just take Dirty Tesla with him and he gonna record everything for him or something.
Better setup, yeah.
Better setup. And there you could really see, I mean, FSD didn't really made the car slower, but didn't really stop at stop signs, for example. And this is something humans always do. We never really total stop at the stop sign. It's just like a creeping forward, and then we're gonna stop if traffic comes. But I think then Dojo will be very important to train the system again with simulations, even though that's stop at a stop sign, and do it all over again.
Imitate human behavior more and more, because also in that same video, it slows down for a speed bump. And now it doesn't recognize that speed bump. It just goes over on the set speed. And that those human-like behaviors, those will make the ride even more comfortable than it is right now.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
totally.
that's the whole promising part of V12. I mean, it's there's no code in it at all. So it's perception. It's just what the way we humans learn as babies as well, or as small adults. So that's the promising part of it, and that's also why I believe there's no bottleneck anymore. I mean, it's already solved. The only thing that we need is more data and more compute. But that's even though it was a bad resolution and not a good setup, it was a breakthrough moment to see that this was just all based on photons in and output out. I mean, it's no code at all, and that was the breakthrough part of it. And it showed how easygoing it went. And of course, it still made some mistakes. I believed he had to do one intervention in that.
Wanted to run a red light. Didn't understand.
But for a 45-minute drive with one intervention, I mean, it's amazing already, of course.
Yeah, I also thought that it was a total breakthrough. Maybe Friedrich, you've also seen maybe the video or seen that. How do you feel about the FSD 12?
Yeah, I would love to go to the US and test it by myself, and I need to do it to be honest, because that gives you a lot of energy if you're working on a project like this, you know, to see as it is. But in general, my view on this is quite like it will be like a chat GPT moment. So it won't be like it will be announced that it's now done, and then there will be a couple of versions, you know, and then everyone can wait for it, and then it's deployed, boom, and then it's there. It will be out of nowhere, you know. It will be just one update that might come, you know, FSD 12.6.8, whatever, and then it's like a human. It's better than a human. And from this point on, there will be no questions anymore like, okay, it works in the US where you have big highways, but how will it work in small cities in Italy? Because it's better than a human. So if a human can do it, right, drive in the US, and people don't understand this because the human, we as humans, we have a great, you know, engine running, but it's really bad in exponential growth, you know, imagining it. And we have our limitations, and that's one of them. And that's why everyone is, you know, having these doubts and all of it. But I always remind myself, if I would, you know, call my grandpa, who is unfortunately dead for a couple of years now, and say, you know, and then back in the 1960s, and tell him, hey, I have a thing in my hand where I can just put whatever I want into, and then oh, sorry, that's my door ring.
No worries.
So my doorbell.
We didn't have that back then as well.
Yeah, they didn't have this digital doorbell as well.
Hey, that's my grandpa. No, just kidding.
He's digitalized already.
Yeah, exactly. Digitalized. Yeah, exactly. No. Back to the story. So I call my grandpa in the 96 and tell him, hey, I have this little thing in my hands, and I can show you everything, every data point, every information you want within a second. You can listen to any song. He will be like, yeah, right. And it's the same now. If you tell people, hey, there's a Tesla can pretty much drive on itself in the US, they're like, yeah, right. And then you show them, you know, one of those videos from Dirty Tesla, whatever, and they're like, no way, that's not real. Like, yeah, that's right now. And this is the same story. So this is you know, what I always, you know, remind myself on a day where I doubt this stuff, and then it's yeah, okay, it's going to happen. It doesn't matter when, and this is just the beginning of it.
Yeah, and I also found it very cool the assuring that we now have that yeah. I mean, FSD 12 was this moment for me, like, okay, now we are close. It's getting closer and closer, and this is the switch. They flipped the switch now to this newer system. And now everybody else who does these kinds of systems are working on a totally older way to do it actually, and now we have a newer way to do it. And now, of course, there's still baby steps to do now, because now they have to go it. But as we know, with ChatGPT as an example, how steady was the growth of ChatGPT, or the improvements, or the version improvements of ChatGPT in a few years, like 2 years? It was such a steep. And now we have even voice input and everything else. You can give it pictures and it can explain you stuff. And now ChatGPT announced that they also go to the hardware side now. And it's interesting what they will come up with. Maybe an assistant like Amazon. I'm not saying the name, so I don't trigger it, but or what also Apple offers, maybe an assistant, because this makes sense. I'm still waiting for Apple to catch up and improve the system that Apple uses, which I won't name. So we can really have these language models now with that. And I think for me, it's the same with FSD here, that now is the time where we see it more and more, and the improvement will be exponential. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy. One question I also have, maybe to Florian again, because I was curious. Why Tesla? How does Tesla affect the cost structure also of the leasing business? Is it better for you or better for the customer? Why did you choose Tesla? Besides that, your mission aligned back then. What was your reasoning there?
Well, it starts with intuition. So we fell in love with Tesla. Of course, also Elon visited the Netherlands in the beginning 3 times, and we had the opportunity to actually meet him, to make a bet with him. So, I mean, that helps, to fall in love with the brand. But we also ordered the first 50 Teslas in the Netherlands. That was back in 2013. And they helped us with a buyback agreement, so we could get our funding in order. And as of 2014-15, there were not very much. It was like Tesla was the only one in the field. I mean, there was Nissan. There were some plug-in hybrids, but we were not interested in plug-ins at all. We said we were only going to 100% electric. And Tesla offered a car which, at the price point, which was a car which was better than their competitor ICE vehicles. So the strategy from Tesla was perfect for us as well. I mean, they started at a high entry point, and then they went lower with the SX, and then the 3 and the Y. In every year we evolved. 2016, 2017, we made a list of other entrants, and every time we said, hey, maybe this is a good competitor of Tesla. Every year we made the decision, no, we're gonna stay 100% with Tesla. Then 2019 came by, and then we had the first AI day, where Elon presented their self-driving vision and their self-driving business model. That was the moment that we said, well, this is perfect. We bet on the perfect horse. This is the horse is going to win. Even in those days, in the beginning, it was pretty difficult to really grasp the opportunity and to really grasp the complete disruption of the whole automobile industry because of this new FSD and self-driving technology. But as the years evolved and we're living in 2023 now, we are all in Tesla, and we keep on staying all in Tesla. Of course, there are also some hiccups working together with them, but we're like a small speedboat around them, and we are able to offer good services to our clients, because we are still small and agile. There are also some stuff that Tesla doesn't do that good.
Where they're lacking in service,
for example. Okay. That's a moment that we step in, and that makes us a perfect match for our clients, because we're also very entrepreneurial, personal oriented. Sometimes we also say, it's good that Tesla doesn't do everything okay, because that's our value add,
Sometimes we even know more than the people working at Tesla.
Yeah, it's always the same thing going on here. That we think of something, and then somebody says, hey, Tesla's going to do it as well. That we say, we invented that. Well, there's actually one invention that we actually proposed. It was the pin to drive. We had some cars that were stolen from us. And we said to Tesla, why don't you make a pin into the system that's the way you can start the car? They actually said, hey, that's a good idea. Let's introduce that.
Cool.
So that's actually an invention from Mr. Green.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've also heard about this functionalities. For example, there's some was it the Joe mode or something? Somebody called Joe said something at Twitter, I think. Oh, why don't you have this? They're like, okay, let's put it in there, and then they called it like the guy who mentioned it. Yeah, the Joe mode. I think it was absolutely interesting. But how is the future going? I mean, you've already said. Many things about how Mr. Green is going to handle the future with the robotaxi fleet, but how could you see this market develop more and more? How this still will unfold with Tesla and the whole car market? Do you think that the other brands will license, for example, FSD if they're not strong in that thing, and then can they keep up? Will we have a Tesla monopoly, or will everything be fair in the future?
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting the next few years. I mean, we're already seeing it in China, where the big OEMs are losing market share to the Chinese manufacturers and to Tesla.
And the Chinese, which are copying Tesla. In some senses, like the interfaces, the interiors of the vehicles are very light.
That's true.
Alike.
All the cars are getting minimalistic suddenly.
Yeah,
yeah. That's also noticed that not even with the Chinese cars, but I've seen some. Everybody said, "Oh, it looks bad. Where are the buttons?" And now everybody copied. Like Apple, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with Apple and BlackBerry. Yeah.
What for me is like, I think the future of the automotive market really lies in the fact how are they going to scale up and build their vehicles, because we spoke about BMW earlier on. They have the 4 Series. You can have it as an i4 electric. You could have it as a diesel, as a normal petrol car. By adopting that way of working, you can never scale to the production output levels as a Tesla, for instance, does. They have 4 cars in 5 colors with 2 types of wheels, and they have their complete production line set up to get as many cars out in as little time as possible. And that's really where they're going to see their main profit drivers and then production output. And if the rest cannot follow suit, then they're going to take massive losses. So we're going to have a lot of influx from the Chinese market. So Build Your Dreams, hopefully NIO and XPeng, for instance, they're going to come onto these markets next to Tesla. And they're going to play the game on EV part, and the big OEMs are making losses on the EV side. Every EV produced is selling with a loss, and they also need to cut production of their ICE vehicles due to legislation. Yes. So they're going to have a really hard time.
I've sent you my vision statement, and somewhere in the vision statement I've put in that original equipment manufacturers will go bankrupt. I still believe that. They have a lot of problems. And you're already seeing it in the US right now, what kind of problems they have. The unions, and the unions is not even it. That's coming back to our intuition. I mean, if you're not mission driven in this game, and you're still with 2 legs in 2 different markets, in the ICE market and the EV market, you're going to have a very difficult time, and you have to make decisions. So it's also about the culture, but the most important thing, I think, their balance sheet is going to be it's going to be bombed, going to be torpedoed in the next few years. And Friedrich has a very nice chart about that, how the German market is actually working at this moment. But and maybe he can explain that in a moment. But I think if you look at the future, the real future is, what is this technology going to enable in services? I mean, if you have a car driving on itself, I mean, it's not a car anymore. It's just something which is driving. So you could have a pub on wheels, or you could have an office on wheels, or whatever on wheels. So the whole value proposition is going to change. You're not going to pay for kilometers anymore. You're not going to pay for transport. You're going to get the transport for free, but you're going to pay the service which the transport is offering. So that's going to be a radical change. And of course, we're seeing that with a lot of startups who are already thinking about this. But the way Tesla is disrupting the market already with their lower prices and with tremendous margins on vehicles produced, and therefore very low pricing, it's already hitting the market at a very low level. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen in the next 3 years. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
And sorry, Friedrich, but I think you have a very interesting chart about residual values in Germany and that kind of stuff. So maybe you can explain a little bit about that.
Well, that's kind of hard to explain. That's better to show, but
yeah.
Do you have it somewhere? Can you? Because
not out of not that I would share now here. It would be a little bit sensitive. So one thing is that I see, we see all these fancy models coming out, right? From BMW, new luxury class, whatever, all in the premium class segment. And obviously, they know how to do this. They look good, they feel good, they drive good, and but that's it. So, this is a quite small market, and everyone is fighting for this now because, and this is actually what I want to come down to. It's the machine that builds the machine, right?
Yeah.
And even though some manufacturers announce a $25,000 car or a $20,000 car, the question is not, can they, are they capable of, making one prototype and presenting this prototype? Is where is the factory that basically builds this car, right? So, for example, I don't want to talk bad about the German manufacturers too much, but the thing is, this new Volkswagen Polo, what is it? ID2, is it ID2?
I think it was ID2, yeah.
Again. But it's a quite cheap car, that looks good, from the outside. Also, the specs are looking promising. But where do they build these cars on scale?
Mm-hmm.
There is no factory. So first they need to build a factory to really make this a profitable car. If they want to build these cars in the same factories they building now their ICE cars in, good luck doing that. But that's not how it works. And they know this as well, The managers these managers, they know this as well. It's just, I think they announce it, they're waiting for their bonuses, and then they bounce, So this is but okay, that's that part. And then the other part is the leasing industry in Germany is and it's not only in Germany, but I think Germany is one of the main markets for it. It's a captive-driven market. So that means basically that in Germany, the OEMs and manufacturers, they work with their own lease banks, so the Volkswagen Financial Services or BMW Bank, and they highly, highly subsidize their own leasing rates. So what that means is basically if you buy a car at a dealer lot, at a dealers somewhere, you get, 20% discount, right? But if you lease the car, you get actually 25%, and 5% is hidden in the interest rate of their own bank, and they make sure that all these cars are coming back to them. So when they make sure that they get all these cars back, right, they also can somehow dictate the used car prices. Because if you have all the supply, or like not all, but the main supply, the car is worth what you say it's worth, because you own 80% of the cars are coming back then in 3 years. So this is how they survive and can produce all these cars, and making sure that they are going out to the dealers, and it all looks good on their balance sheets, because they sell these cars. And then later on the used car market, other people pay the prices for the new cars. It's all subsidized. And the problem is with Tesla, they don't do this. So what they do, Tesla, and this is why they're all in the media, they slash list prices, right? And first everyone thinks, okay, well, that's bad for the residual values, which is somehow correct, right? This is, of course, if you buy a car and it was 2 days later, it's worth 5,000 euros less, well, that's not good for you. But just imagine what this means for other cars, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine
absolutely.
what this means for an ID3 that you just bought for the same.
Oh my God!
So you want to get all
true.
This is all behind the curtains, and that's why they everyone is hating, because Tesla. And this is not only one thing that Tesla is doing different. Everything Tesla is doing different, and that's why it's also hard for other suppliers, that have that more like legacy traditional environment to work with them, because they say, yeah, well, you're just one other manufacturer that we buy cars from. So please, this is the process we work with. Please, Tesla, adapt. And Tesla is smiling, nah, not going to happen. You adapt to our process because ours are better. And then, it's all the problem. So looking at all of this, of course, I don't know where this all ends, but if the other manufacturers cannot produce cheaper cars, and I'm really talking about cheaper and better cars than Tesla, and also just like and from a hardware perspective, right? So how does the car perform on 1 million miles in terms of service, performance in cold weather and whatever? This is actually hardware, not only how the sound of the door is when you close it, right? So if they don't come up with something, and also do not come up with better software, I have no idea how they what's the value proposition for a customer in the end.
Yeah.
Why in God's name would you go for a car from a different manufacturer that is 10,000, 15,000 euros more and worse in performance? There must be like a political reason why you hate Elon Musk, but there's no argument.
Reasoning, yeah.
Exactly. And then especially if the car gets decarred, right? If you just want to have it from getting from A to B, and it's an autonomous, and then it's even less, because it's less emotional, it's rather rational. So yeah, I cannot give you numbers, but this leads me to a very high market share for Tesla. Yeah. That's pretty much my opinion.
Thanks for this statement as well. I'm also not very sure how this all will unfold, but it will remain pretty astonishing and interesting, especially now what you've said about the leasing situation and everything. And I hope for Tesla actually not to become better at service, that also MisterGreen, of course, can offer a better service here for their customers. I'm pretty happy to have you all on here in the podcast today. In between the episode, you might see me flinching a little bit because I was fighting against a wasp that is flying around the room here. So this is the Easter egg for this episode. If you watched until this time, maybe you rewatch it and try to find the fight against the wasp. But now to everybody here in the round. So Florian, thank you very much. Friedrich also, and of course, sorry, I'm blanking out on the name.
My name's Kees. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And please, everybody, look at MisterGreen, follow them and everything. And maybe for the end, maybe Florian, you also want to say something about what's next for you guys and what you're doing, or something you want to say to my audience. Then now is the time to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully, we have inspired other people to think like us. That's our main goal. To end fossil fuels and to help other people become entrepreneurial as well, and help with our mission. We are always looking for people who want to work with us, especially in the countries where we're at right now, but also in the countries where we're expanding to. We also want to set up a business in the US. So please contact us. We're all on Twitter, on X. Sorry, we will start doing more in public. We start talking more in public about what we're doing. Our next main focus is going to be redrive. As I told you, we're going to bring in Tesla leases at a very reasonable price, including FSD, and at a very low monthly duration. So it's going to be like a subscription, redrive FSD kind of idea. If you think I can help with that, please contact us. Kees, do you want to say something at last?
Stay in touch. Follow at MisterGreen EV on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Kees Roelandschap.
X.
And follow Friedrich also on X. And if you want to work at an atypical leasing company, which does not believe in a contract lifetime value, but in a vehicle lifetime value, where we can have a car, purchase it, have it drive around for 10, 15 years as a real sustainable way of mobility, join the team.
Perfect. Yeah, so thank you very much, guys, for this great interview. I'm so glad this happened now, because we've all pushed the schedules from last year and now, and then we always kept pushing that I was the bad guy who had to push the interview to today. But yeah, thank you very much for everything. And for the audience, I think there's only one last thing that we can say, and that's goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Wasn't this episode awesome? Let's accelerate the pace of innovation by subscribing to Tesla FX. It is my absolute favorite channel on the whole interwebs.